Let's turn to the man who's to blame for the Brussels Playbook daily newsletter on Politico.eu. Ryan Heath, thank you for joining us from Brussels.
A pleasure as always.
Ryan, first of all, your reaction to what we just heard from our reporter, Mark Owen, that it's too early to tell about turnouts, but it could be high. Have you got some kind of a crystal ball there with you?
Unfortunately not. The British are not as organised as the French when it comes to collecting data. That's one of the problems they're going to face with managing the Brexit. They don't really know who's coming and going from the country a lot of the time. So my understanding is that turnout is going to be reasonably high, and that will help the Labour Party overall. If the Labour Party can't drive a high turnout, it really doesn't have a chance of forming a government. And they have all of those barriers in front of them because they're going to have to form some kind of coalition government, it looks like, unless we get a really shock result later tonight.
Some kind of coalition government, but with who should the Conservatives fail to get the needed outright majority they currently enjoy, seeing as, well, the Lib Dems are in favor of rolling back Brexit?
So the key players here are really the Scottish National Party and the Liberal Democrats, because both of them favour some other kind of Brexit, and both of them will want to use that as a condition in whatever kind of budget support or coalition talks they enter into if the Conservatives can't form a majority government. So this is really where things are going to come to a fundamental clash, and you might not see any form of coalition government emerge. You might see Britain go back to the polls within several months if we get that sort of scenario. A more likely coalition would be between Labour, the Scottish Nationals and the Liberal Democrats. And I think there will still be some very difficult negotiations there. They're not going to sign up, the Liberal Democrats, for the sort of coalition they went into between 2010 and 2015 with the Tories. They saw how that hurt them electorally. So they're going to come to some other kind of agreement if that's the arrangement that is necessary. But I think what you can count on is Theresa May being weakened no matter what happens. Either she's going to win and be a weakened Prime Minister, she's going to be forced into tedious negotiations and maybe won't get any result out of them. That's also a weakened result. Or if Jeremy Corbyn can pull something out of the hat and become Prime Minister, then that's clearly the weakest situation of all for Theresa May. And that's the opposite of what she was intending when she called this election.
Ryan, when we look at tracking polls over the last 6 weeks, we see that, well, the Conservative support hasn't really dipped much. Instead, it's Labour which has surged at the expense of UKIP. What does that tell you?
Well, I'm not sure it's a direct translation. I fully accept that the Conservatives have held their level of support, and Labour has really performed beyond the expectations that people had for them. Remember that not many people thought that Jeremy Corbyn was fit to govern when this election campaign started, so he had a very low bar to clear in the first place, and he's been surpassing that. UKIP seem to have sort of achieved their political goal in having the Brexit result that they did, which doesn't mean they've gotten everything they wanted or that their diehard supporters have disappeared, but this reason to have a protest vote for UKIP has kind of disappeared without a trace. So Labour's been climbing back up because it really didn't have anywhere to go further down. And, of course, the Scottish Nationals had to go down. They couldn't get more seats than they have now because they hold virtually every seat in Scotland. So it's natural that a lot of that support would sort of drift at the edges to Labour and even a little bit to the Conservatives.
Ryan, you're in Brussels where people at the Commission are getting their ducks in order for those Brexit negotiations. Over the last 6 weeks, has the perception of the United Kingdom changed?
Yes, it has. And I think that the people I talk to inside the Commission headquarters in Brussels, the national diplomats that we're in regular touch with, they're feeling more confident than they were 6 weeks ago. If you cast your mind back to a year ago, I think there was great concern that the UK was on a roll, that they were going to stay united and have a way to cause a divide and conquer situation amongst the other 27 EU countries. Now, those EU countries still have their divisions, but they seem fairly united in the fact that they have nothing to play with unless they stick together. So they're singing from that same hymn sheet, They've been doing that for 9 months now. They're really sorting out some difficult issues. Just in the last 10 days alone, they've come up with a set of plans for the Eurozone. They've come up with a defence action fund and some other wider defence cooperation initiatives. And 20 of the countries have agreed to set up a European prosecutor. These are very sensitive, divisive debates that you would have thought would be falling apart at this moment, and Theresa May would be steamrolling through, being very successful. And actually, it's the other way around. Theresa May's been getting weaker, and the EU has been holding its line. So I think that's surprising a lot of people in Brussels. They can't really believe their luck, and they're wondering whether that will hold once the election is over. Because remember, these negotiations are due to kick off on the 19th of June. So we're really headed into that actual serious action moment now.
Who says Brussels is boring? Certainly not Ryan Heath, the editor of the Brussels Playbook on Politico.eu. Thank you for joining us.